All right, Shalom. First off, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem Rakakadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, and a sincere Shalom to the Akim out here that's doing and pushing this work in truth and in sincerity. I want to go on this video, okay, about Matthew 5 and 44, where it says, love your enemies. Okay, that scripture is talking about Israelites dealing with other Israelites. Okay, because an Israelite can be your enemy. It wasn't saying to love everybody. Okay, contrary to how Christians teach it. Okay, Christianity, you go into, the Bible, you'll understand that the doctrine that they teach, okay, is not biblical. It doesn't align with the scriptures, and it doesn't align with what the Lord wants. Okay. Now Matthew 5 and 44, okay, this is the breakdown of the scripture, okay, according to us at Great Millstone. Okay. And Matthew 5 and 44 says, but I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that which despitefully use you and persecute you. Right? And let's get this scripture in the blue letter. Okay? Matthew 5, verse 44. Right? Matthew. Let's get this word. I'll start at 43, right? It says, you have heard that it has been said, thou shalt love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Okay? Get this word enemy. It says, hated, odious, hateful, hostile, hating, and opposing another, used of men as an enmity with God by their sin, opposing God in the mind, a man that is hostile, a certain enemy, the hostile one, the devil, who is the most bitter enemy of the divine government. Okay, so a brother can be hostile to another brother. Okay? Heck, when you look at this scripture, Matthew 10 and 36, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household. So people in your own household could be considered an enemy. Okay? And it wasn't talking about this person that's just trying to come up into your house, rob you, kidnap your children, touch on your children, murder someone, and then you just say, you know what, I'm gonna forgive this person, because I love him. That's wickedness. Okay? We're not supposed to have that mindset. Okay? But when we talk about fellow believers, that's a different thing. Okay? Now, it says Great Millstone, right? They go deeper than surface Christianity and interpret this through identity, order, and wisdom. Okay? It says love your enemies equals not emotional love. According to GMS, this is not saying be soft, be affectionate, accept wickedness. The word love here is understood as righteous conduct, not feelings. Now let's get that word love. Okay? Of persons to welcome, to entertain, to be fond of, to love dearly. Of things to be well pleased, to be contented at or with a thing. Okay? to love in a social or moral sense. Okay? It says the breakdown, it says deal wisely with enemies. Don't let hatred push you into sin. Keep the commandments even around them. Okay? Proverbs 25 and 21. If your enemy, which is talking about another Israelite, be hungry, give him bread to eat. Okay, and the thing too, it's just being spiritual, right? The scripture says be harmless as a dove, okay? Wise as a serpent. So, we don't just go out here and just, this is an enemy, we're going to, just straight up piss on them. For one, we say, this person could be an Israelite, could be an Edomite, okay? But we're going to be spiritual because, we know, we got an unction of who's a Edomite, okay? But at the same time, an Edomite might be friendly to you, Do that mean that we just gonna, what's the word? We gonna just piss on this Edomite, just because we mad. I'm just saying the first thing that come to my mind, or spit on them, because that's, people look at that as, one of the top forms of disrespect. It's an Edomite, so I'm gonna spit on them. You gotta bow down, Esau. That's the mindset that a lot of people have when it comes down to being carnal, or hating someone. When it comes down to anybody that doesn't teach this truth, we have to move a certain type of way. Okay, so we're not super friendly, and we don't know this person from Adam and Eve, but we're gonna allow them to just come into our house, and just chill and talk and break bread with them because they say that they're an Israelite. No, that don't work. It don't work like that. Okay, you might have someone that is a brother, right? It could have been pushing with you, but then for whatever reason things went left, and could have went to it could have had a disagreement, but we don't as far as a brother that's pushing this truth, you want to hope that the brother would get it, do I understand? Okay, so it says this is about discipline and control, not affection. The Bible talks about certain laws when men have quarrels against one another, and how someone that's a righteous judge is supposed to judge between that situation. Okay, it's part the brotherhood. Okay, this brother owe me a certain amount of money, I can't trust him. We supposed to have a certain mindset when it comes down to certain things like that. It says, bless them that curse you, don't react carnally. When people curse you, insult you, or slander you, you don't respond like the world, violence, revenge, emotional outbursts. Instead, you maintain composure. You respond with wisdom or silence. Ecclesiasticus 8:1. Strive not with a mighty man. Sometimes the blessing is simply not escalating the situation. Okay? Do good. I'm gonna get that scripture, Ecclesiasticus 8:1. Okay? Strive not with a mighty man, lest thou fall into his hands. Be not at variance with a rich man, lest he overweigh you. For gold has destroyed many and perverted the hearts of kings. Strive not with a man that is full of tongue, and heap not wood upon his fire. Okay? So these scriptures is talking about, how you supposed to deal with, you know, like a person that, you know that this person got a certain limit, and you push that person to his limit. He's past that limit, and then, what the scripture say? A soft answer turneth away wrath. Okay? So, it says, do good to them that hate you equals strategic righteousness. Okay? This doesn't mean go out your way to serve your enemies blindly. Okay? Continue to operate in righteousness regardless of how they feel about you. If an opportunity comes to do good without compromising truth, do it. Okay? Why? Because you represent the Lord, not your emotions. And when you look at, if a person, does you wrong, okay, that says a lot more about that person. How you react says a whole lot about you. Okay? And sometimes we got to be able to rise above whatever the situation that may be in front of us. Okay? I remember, having talks with, the elder Karate Sabah, okay, where certain brothers, did certain things, to me, and for one, I didn't understand where it came from, and it was a hard time for me dealing with that situation, because, I was a brother that was in need, and, these brothers, they, they turned their back on me, and, the carnality of the situation was like, what, fuck these guys, they ain't shit, it's wicked as fuck, that what they did, but then, later on down the line, it got to the point where, they needed me for certain things, after they done turned their back on me for something major, and, brother, was like, shoot, man, you a strong brother, to be able to, take that and, not, return the favor because of this person, in a situation where somebody did you wrong and then now you got the opportunity to do that person wrong, it's like we really represent the Lord, so we got to be able to be above our personal feelings and, how we feel about the situation, how we feel about this person, So it's like, you overcome evil with good, okay? You don't want to be fighting tooth and nail, about some petty shit, okay? Even though some of these things, could be offensive to us, okay? But we represent Yahweh Shem Yahushua, and it's, these little small little things that, we get into it with over people, which, they are serious. Some of these things are serious. They are offensive to, we might bring offenses, and something else may be offensive unto us. Okay? But when we really, in a grand scheme of things, it's like, is this situation really bigger than your salvation? What really matters to you the most? It should be really about trying to please Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Okay? Because honestly, the Lord is the one who made the situation be what it is. So we got to look at it like, why did the Lord, make this situation what it is to where I'm at, odds with a brother. Okay? When you look at King David and King Saul, King David, he had multiple times to, kill, King Saul, but he didn't. Okay? And he kept on praying to the Lord, take that spirit off of him, because he was on a run. Okay? So when you talk about someone that loved their enemy, okay, look at King David as an example. Okay? It says, Romans 12:20, it says, in so doing, thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Your righteousness condemns their wickedness. Okay? So it's up to the Lord to win, to win that battle. We ain't go out here and, try to go put somebody to death, or harm them or anything. You let the Lord, bring that, that judgment. Okay? It says, pray for them, leave judgment to the Lord. It says, you're not praying for their salvation necessarily, right? But these are situations, it could be an actual brother, okay, that's trying to, serve the Lord, that's trying to, please the Lord. You will want a brother to actually make it, okay, not be destroyed, okay, to get, whatever spirit that may be on them off of them, okay. It says you pray for the Lord's will to be done. Oh, it says you're not praying for their salvation necessarily, especially if they're outside of the elect. You pray for the Lord's will to be done, which it will be done. Okay, you may pray that they be corrected and removed if they wicked. Let his days be few. Proverbs 109:8. It says King David prayed against enemies, so prayer isn't always soft. It's righteous judgment aligned with the Lord. Okay? It says, who are the big GMS context? Who are enemies? Okay, GMS often teaches this primarily applies to Israelites dealing with other Israelites, not a universal love everyone equally doctrine. Okay, among your people, you show restraint, mercy, and wisdom. And it says, but ultimate judgment, especially on the wicked nations, or other nations, is left to the Lord. Okay, so Matthew 5:44 is about self-control, wisdom over emotion, operating in righteousness under pressure, representing the Lord properly. Okay, not being passive, accepting evil, loving wickedness. Okay, you don't conquer your enemies by becoming like them. You conquer them by staying righteous while the Lord handles judgment. Okay, and in certain situations where you might need this person, they wasn't there, hurt, or y'all are at odds, for something that you probably could have done right, or done better, okay, or you probably did the right thing, but they just didn't appreciate it, okay. If this brother continues to have that anger, that hatred, okay, they're in danger. And that mindset of, is this really more important than salvation should be lingering in their mind, so they should be wanting to make things right with a brother. Okay, even if they might not be at, the best of friends. Okay, because the 144,000, they'll be friends in the kingdom, but it ain't to say that they won't have disagreements on their side. Okay, but we put all those disagreements aside for Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. Okay, and that's what it's really about. Trying to put our differences aside and represent the Lord the right way. Okay, so with that, Lord willing, this is edifying. I want to say shalom till next time.